everybody, and thank you for welcoming. It's great to see so many people here. I'm gonna try to keep this at like 45 minutes because I know there's people standing, and I want to give us time to mingle and to ask questions and stuff. So I'm from Oakland, California. I was born and raised in Oakland. My parents immigrated in the 70s from Peru. So I'm a first-generation American. I grew up in a family where my parents didn't go to college, and so for them, myself and my brother succeeding in college was, education was the way that we were supposed to kind of survive. My parents worked 3-4 jobs. They were everything from janitors to clerks, and finally they opened their own business. And so kind of through the experience of seeing what happened not only to my parents, but in the community I grew up with, which is Oakland, the 4th most dangerous city in the country. It has one of the highest homicide rates, is where I kind of formed my whole understanding of what it meant to be a woman of color growing up in the United States at the time of increased globalization. And so I want to start with this piece, which is from the new book that I co-edited with Josh McPhee, Reproduce and Revolt, really to just kind of set the tone of reminding everyone that we live in a time of media monopoly, and especially in the United States, where you have over 90% of our media owned by 3 major corporations. What does our role become as artists, as media makers? I believe that our role becomes something with which we expose and we agitate and we educate. And so it's within that context that I produce a lot of the work with the institutions that I'm going to talk about as well. So I'm going to start with showing some of my pieces. I'm going to go into then talking about the Cultural Center, which Teresa and Erwin referred to, and then some of the other projects that I'm doing. So this piece I did in 2001, right after the day after 9/11, really as a statement against the war, because as women of color, we got together that day with Insight, Women of Color Against Violence, a national organization, and we knew we wanted to have a women-centered anti-war message that was really around calling out what was about to happen, because we knew that Bush was going to push forward with a really militarized agenda, and we wanted to create posters and propaganda against the war. And so we printed 10,000 of these, shipped them to Minneapolis, Chicago, LA, New York, all the major cities, and that's when kind of we began doing a very national anti-war resistance. At the same time, one thing that was happening in the United States was that military recruitment really started scaling up. And where was this happening? In communities of color, right? Already in communities where we have extremely high dropout rates. Black and brown young people in public schools in the United States have almost maybe 65% dropout rate. And so within that context, we were then getting recruited to join the military. And so it was important to create a message that was around calling out the U.S. military machine, that not only were we recruiting people of color to fill the front lines, but also who were we killing abroad? And really also reminding people that we still live in a very white patriarchal society in the United States, and that black men and brown men are still, we get treated as second-class citizens.
This one says war targets for people.
This piece around, I did this with Code Pink. I'm not sure if you have heard of Code Pink. Code Pink is also, they're a really fresh women's rights women organization, really pro-peace. I mean, they always do this kind of really cool theater where, for example, when they wanted a pink slip Bush, they all showed up in these pink slips to the White House with pink slips for Bush. And so this piece was done in collaboration, and we launched this at the Democratic National Convention, really to just say, I was at the 2000 DNC in Los Angeles, and that's when they gassed us. And I don't know if you remember how they shot, pellets into the crowds. And this was in 2000 when we said, the Democrats and the Republicans, they're both the same. They're both controlled by big business. And so in this election in 2008, it was important for us to go to Denver to tell Obama that we really need to push him on the peace message, because we need to make sure that he's accountable to everyone who voted for him, especially the anti-war movement, I think, was a big kind of force behind his election. And so we plastered these all over Denver during the convention. This piece is something I just recently did, and one thing that in kind of a lot of the posters I do, they're not posters that I just do and they kind of sit in my house